Welcome to Hot Route Takes. I'm your host, Brian Sarver, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Christian Mills.
Today we are doing our 5 landing spots for some of the premier defensive free agents in the 2023 class. And Christian, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I'll start us off. The first guy I'm going to go with is safety J.C. Bates. I have him going to Washington. I think Ron Rivera has been known to be a defensive-first kind of head coach. They've failed to really show this identity in Washington to me other than that defensive line. I think it's a big hole for them at that position right now. I understand they have a bunch of young guys, but I just think with that division and how it's shaping out, they need to go get a vet to kind of help that back end out. Another team I have is the Colts. I think this would be a great fit, and the Colts kind of lost their starting safety this year. Kahir Willis, out of nowhere, he announced his retirement in the mid of June, and without him on the team, they had to start a third-round pick, Nick Cross, setting up, right in that role. It's kind of rough, I feel like, for a third-round pick and a rookie. He didn't play too bad, but I just think Jessie Bates is, of course, going to be the better player there, but you're going to have to spend more and kind of help this Colts defense kind of go back to what they were a few years back. I got both of these teams picked for Jessie Bates.
Yeah, I like Jessie Bates a lot. I think wherever he goes, one thing for sure, he's certainly going to get the bag, and he deserves it. He's one of the best safeties in the NFL, and I can certainly see those two teams being good fits for him. All right, and my first defensive free agent is Jamel Dean, former corner of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think a good landing spot for him would be the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons currently have 2 primary corners under contract in A.J. Terrell and Casey Hayward. Casey Hayward is an aging player who only played in 6 games last year. Atlanta can save $5 million in 23 by just cutting him. They need another guy who can play outside. I think Jamel Dean is that guy. I think he's a long physical corner, and I think he'd be a nice complement to what they already have in A.J. Terrell. I think they will probably bring back Isaiah Oliver, former early pick in the draft. They try to play him outside. He was a little high-hipped and struggled, so they moved him to the slot, and he kind of took off. But if you add Jamel Dean to this room to play outside, I think this is a very good corner room. I think you have a lot of versatility, being able to play both man and zone with them. However, if there is a weakness that I see here, it's that both Oliver and Dean are both high-hipped corners that would struggle with quick receivers. So they would likely have to play a little bit of matchup. But A.J. Terrell is a good player. He can do that. So that was my fit for Jamel Dean.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And AJ I'm not having a terrible year, but he kind of fell down a little bit this year. I think adding him would actually help AJ kind of get better too. And I think this Atlanta Falcons definitely, with Casey Hayward there, they need maybe to get this corner room a little bit younger. My second guy is Byron Murphy Jr. for the Cardinals. I think, they don't have Kyler Murray for at least the first half of the season. That's why I think a lot of these players they're having free agency, they're going to have to leave if they want to win. So I have them going to the Minnesota Vikings. Their secondary is kind of not shaky, but a lot of the guys are all free agents also. They have their outside cornerbacks, Patrick Peterson and Duke Shelley, are all free agents, but there are candidates that I can see the Vikings re-sign and bring back. So I think why not just go after a guy like Byron Murphy to help this defense that struggled at times. He's a young veteran and he's in his prime at 25. And I think you have your 2 outside guys come back, and then Murphy can go back to where he was in college in Washington playing the inside slot role. So then my next place for him is Baltimore Ravens. I think with Marcus Peters in and out of the lineup and getting older in age and just he's a free agent too, I think you just cut your ties with him. I also think with you going to maybe franchise tag Lamar this year, you have to kind of go all out and do all you can on both sides of the ball to make Lamar maybe stay after this franchise tag and you offer him a new deal. I like both spots, but I'm leaning more towards the Vikings.
I got you. Byron Murphy's a really good player, and kind of like you were talking about, he is better in the slot, but he is a guy who can play outside. I think the Vikings desperately need to improve that defense, especially with them bringing in a guy like Brian Flores. I could see them kind of transitioning over a little bit into more of a man-predicated system, which if that does indeed happen, I don't think they would stick with Pat Pete outside. I do think he is a goner. He used to be a terrific man corner, but nowadays with him slowing down a little bit physically, I think he's transitioned to a zone corner. I think that's what he is best at, and that is what Minnesota ran. Sean Desai, disciple of the Vic Fangio tree, they ran a lot of cover six and zone match principles. And yeah, that's great for Pat Pete, but Byron Murphy, really good player. I can see him being a great fit with a Brian Flores, New England disciple defense, but also in Baltimore where they like to move their guys around a lot. Corners playing inside and outside. And I like both of those fits a lot. And my player kind of coincides with what you were talking about. And Jonathan Jones, former New England Patriot. Baltimore Ravens, like you were saying, they need a corner as well, and I think he'd be a great fit for them. Marcus Peters is a free agent, and Baltimore is looking for a replacement for him. Jonathan Jones is one of those guys that can do it all. He can fit right into what Baltimore likes to do, line up outside, line up inside. And this 2022 was actually Jones' first year primarily playing outside corner, and he did well. He's best when he's manning guys up in the slot, which you'll get plenty of opportunity to do. In Baltimore, Marlon Humphrey and Kyle Hamilton are also guys that can move to the slot. So this is another guy that can line up all over the back end for Baltimore for matchup purposes, for whichever you want to do. And he's also a really good tackler in the run game, backed by his 75-plus PFF run defense grade in back-to-back seasons. So I really like Jonathan Jones to the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, I like that fit a lot, and definitely in that division, there's a bunch of teams that like running the ball. So why not go after a corner that can stop the run and get good tackles? So I think that's a good ad for him. Another guy I have on my list is the edge Marcus Davenport for the Saints. They have no cap. I mean, for real this time, they keep pushing it back. They have to let these guys go at this point, and I have them going. I mean, right to the opposite side, Atlanta Falcons. I think it'd be a good fit for them just to add to this defensive line with Grady Jarrett. And they shore up this D-line with just adding him to it. I think you go after him would certainly help your defense a lot. And he has ties to Atlanta. The Falcons' defensive coordinator is former Saints co-defensive coordinator. So I think he can call up his old player and maybe talk him into coming down to Atlanta. Another team I have is Chicago Bears. The Bears put less pressure on opposing quarterbacks than any other team in the NFL in 2022. They only had 20 sacks on the season, and that is insane to me. 20 sacks. They had 3 more sacks in games played in the NFL. That's sad. Chicago could seek a pass rusher in the trade or free agency or the draft, but I just think since you have that $93 million in free agency money, why not go after and get a guy that's a proven guy? And I mean, you just help your defense that needs the help.
Yeah, I completely agree. Marcus Davenport, one of the premier free agents on the defensive side of the ball this time around. And I do think he'd be great fits for both of those squads, particularly since these are younger, rebuilding teams, and Marcus Davenport is still a young player. Both of those teams still have a good bit of cap, so they could pull off a move like that. And Marcus Davenport also can play several spots across the D-line. So I think that's a great fit. And I know Chicago particularly needs help on the defensive side of the ball badly. I know Atlanta does too, but that Chicago's defense is not bare bone, but it almost is on the front seven. So I think that'd be a great fit for Chicago. My next guy, I have Anthony Walker Jr., and this was one that maybe isn't a premier guy, but I think he could fill a very, very important need for the Miami Dolphins. Miami desperately needs a stack backer that can take some weight off Jerome Baker's shoulders. They also need a guy that can run and cover, and they need it bad, especially since they're transitioning away from the New England disciple defense with Brian Flores and Josh Boyer and those guys, and going more towards the cover 6 style defense with Vic Fangio. And they need the linebacker that can cover. Jerome Baker, he's a guy that can kind of do a little bit of everything. He can blitz, he can play on the edge, he can man-to-man cover and zone drop a little bit, but that's not really his game. So Anthony Walker, that's not his game either. But they had Landon Roberts in that position last year, and Anthony Walker's a much better player, just well-rounded wise, and he's also better between the tackles. Roberts was a downhill hammer who was very stout between the tackles, but Anthony Walker just does that at a higher level, and it just gives you a little bit more on third down. Their strengths align, but just that extra third down value and ability to be that hammer between the tackles is very important, I think. But here's a little stat on the difference between the two. For instance, Anthony Walker's passer rating allowed in his career is a full 14 points lower than Roberts is. And Anthony Walker's passer rating allowed was 101, and that's still not a good number, but it's better, I think. And I think they need to find a reasonable player financially to fill that spot because they don't have a whole lot of cap to work with. So Walker's a better tackler, more range, more versatile. So I think he's a good fit for what Miami Dolphins need.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. And like you said with the cap, I think you're going to have to go after maybe not one of these top guys, but get a decent guy at that position, and I think that'll help Miami a lot. I have a linebacker that, you would probably love to go to Miami, but y'all just can't afford him. It's Drew Tranquill. The Chargers are kind of in a cap problem, and they've been talking about, releasing certain players that are big key pieces, and Drew Tranquill's, like I said, a free agent. I have him going to the Las Vegas Raiders. That would hurt my feelings dearly, but I think that's a good fit for him. And going into next year without Desmond Perryman, the Raiders are going to need a linebacker on that squad that can kind of lead the pack. Drew Tranquill had 105 tackles more than his first 3 seasons combined. He also went after the quarterback more this year with the Chargers having, the injuries they had on the defensive line. That's going to have to happen. He tallied 15 pressures and 5 sacks, 3 more quarterback hits on 70 pass rush snaps. Vegas could use a guy like this, and he plays great zone. I think you just go after this guy for the Raiders, and it helps you so much. I'd love for him to come back to the Chargers. That's another team I have him, but like I said, the cap's going to be a problem. But I think you have to go after him because I believe Murray, another linebacker we drafted a few years ago, he's going to be a free agent too. So I think you pick out of those two, you definitely go with Drew Tranquill. And last season we let Kazir White leave going to the Eagles. To this linebacker room is kind of, it's scary. It is. I think you need to bring this guy back. But, I have him going to both of these teams, which one he's already on, but I like both of these fits for him.
Yeah, I do too. I think Drew Tranquill to the Raiders is a great fit. Drew Tranquill is a little bit more of the coverage backer. He played safety at Notre Dame, and that transition to linebacker, the coverage skills came with it. I think that would be a great fit for the Raiders and what they're trying to do. My next guy is Anthony Barr, and I have him going to the Los Angeles Chargers. And I guess this kind of goes without saying, the Chargers' weakness last year was their inability to stop the run. And they have invested heavily into their defense with guys like J.C. Jackson. They have other guys. Mine's going blank here.
Khalil Mack.
Big name right there. Joey Bosa. That's a lot of money tied up in just those 3 guys alone. And they have limited resources to fix this thing. And they need linebackers, man, like Christian was just talking about. I think a cheap linebacker you could bring in that maybe could bring a little bit more value outside of just his production on the field, maybe as a mentor, as Anthony Barr. I think he'd come in and he could be a veteran presence in the room and kind of teach some of these younger guys you're inevitably going to have playing next year just because you're limited resources and ability to stop the run. You're going to have to just bring a bunch of guys in and see what you can find. Anthony Barr isn't what he used to be, but he is a veteran player that can play on a team-friendly deal, and I think that is really what they're going to have to do. So bring in Anthony Barr and then maybe draft a guy and see what you got. But that's my 4th guy.
Yeah, I like that a lot, and we're losing Kyle Van Noy too, the Chargers are. So I think you get a veteran guy just to fill that void for him. If Kyle Van Noy doesn't sign a team-friendly deal, bringing him back. He actually played good with, not Khalil Mack, but Joey Bosa going down. So Kyle Van Noy could maybe earn himself maybe one last decent paycheck for another team. So, if I'm the Chargers, I'm taking Anthony Barr. He's always kind of had a place in my heart for some reason. I don't know why, but, the Chargers linebacker room needs at least a veteran in my eyes and kind of help these young guys that they're going to have to let play on the field. So I think Anthony Barr is a perfect fit for that. My last guy is Daron Payne. I know Washington does have that franchise tag, and if I'm them, I'm no-braining using it on Daron Payne. But if he was to test the free agent market, I'd love to see him maybe in the Pittsburgh Steelers. They do have 7 defensive linemen signed for next seasons, but only 2 of them have played more than 2 years of experience on an active NFL roster. But would you imagine adding this guy with a Cameron Hayward and T.J. Watt going after your quarterback?
Sheesh.
Yeah, I mean, and the Steelers have their quarterback finally on a rookie deal in Kenny Pickett. He showed glimpses and moments this year. So I think you have that rookie quarterback. You can spend some of this money somewhere, and I think Daron Payne's a good place to maybe spend it. And I mean, my last team, I ain't saying he's going to go there, but I just wanted to make a comment on it. Is Michael Parsons, in an interview on PFT, said that he would like Daron Payne a lot to come to the Cowboys. And his reason behind that was that it's just a piece he feel like they're missing. And Michael Parsons also said that, you know, Dallas is probably going to win a Super Bowl here shortly, and they just need a guy like Daron Payne to help push that next step. And he's, I think, out of his mind. But, I mean, he's been in Dallas maybe a little bit too long. But we do know Jerry loves making these big moves and finding ways to make splashes in the offseason to get the Cowboys' name out there. And he loves the whole media behind it all. I mean, Jerry wants this bad enough, he would somehow make it happen. So that's my 3 spots Daron Payne can end up.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think wherever Daron Payne goes, another guy that's going to get the bag. He's a very good player. I'm sure if Washington can bring him back, they will. That's definitely one of the staples to their defense. But I think him fitting in there next to T.J. Watt and Cameron Hayward in Pittsburgh would be nasty. I don't know if they can pull it off financially wise, but I do think that is a great fit for what he can bring to the table. That D-line would be a nightmare for opposing offenses all season long. But my last guy is Devin Bush. This is a guy who has, I would say, struggled this far in his career. Playing with Pittsburgh, he did kind of have somewhat of a career revival last year under Brian Flores, but he still tapered off down the stretch, and you wonder why. I don't know, but I think he has the physical skills to play somewhere and be an effective guy. And I got him going to the New York Giants. The Giants' biggest weakness is their off-ball linebacker, and this is a player, like I was saying, who's largely struggled throughout his career, especially since tearing his ACL in 2020. However, a defensive coordinator like Wink Martindale might be able to revive it. Bush is at best when he's able to play downhill and attack, and that's exactly what he'd be asked to do in this defense. The Giants, they also need another corner, so this could be a financially feasible option they could pursue. So I think Devin Bush going back to a system that was similar to where he played in college at Michigan. It's a man-heavy system with lots of blitzing. I think that's really what Devin Bush needs to be successful, and I think it's just it's a puzzle piece that fit together to me. Giants need somebody. They also have quite a few holes to fill. Why not take a flyer on a guy like Devin Bush who has all the physical upside in the world, and you could get him on a cheap deal? So I like that a lot for New York.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, Daniel Jones and Barkley's a free agent. Both of them guys, they're going to have to pay. They're going to franchise tag one of them. But either way, that's going to be a big part of your cap. So I think you're going to have to, like Brian hinted on, pay a little bit lower for this linebacker just to get you a good corner that you believe in. So, I mean, I like him going to the Giants a lot, and definitely, like I hinted on with another guy, that division, they like to run the ball. So I think that would help Devin Bush's career, kind of where he could just do what he did at Michigan and just run to stop the run. I mean, heck, I'd like for him to come to the Chargers, too, to help us stop the run. But, I mean, I think the Giants is smart just because of their cap kind of to go get the guy like this to make him kind of prove it to him, and then maybe push some money down the road, and then you can get him on a bigger deal if he proves it.
Yeah. You got any final words, Christian?
No, yeah, thank y'all for listening. I mean, always follow. I mean, it helps us, help y'all. Just, I appreciate y'all listening to the pod.
Yeah, hopefully everyone enjoyed. We're going to have our social media up soon, like we've been talking about. If you guys have any comments, concerns, whatever the case is, suggestions, just, find our social media. We're going to make sure we put it out so it's available to everyone, and let us know. But anyways, hope everyone has a great day. Catch you next time.